Joining us here on the show is our good friend from CBS Sports and CBSSports.com, college basketball insider Reid Forgrave. It's the most beautiful time of the year for Reid. Reid, good morning.
I love this. Such a great time of year. Nothing but watch basketball, right? For the next, 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's vasectomy time for many males across America here. Just
simmer down now, boy. Come on.
That's right. Pop up your legs and just enjoy some beer and some food and watch some basketball. Hey, I want to start with Tennessee because the Tennessee Volunteers have been a really interesting team this season. They've been very highly ranked, but a lot of people say, do we really believe them? And now they get a 2 seed. However, as you've noted, this is a team that could potentially be playing Cincinnati in Columbus, just down the road from the Bearcats. How tough a draw is this for a Tennessee team that just got routed by 20 yesterday by Auburn?
Yeah, got absolutely smoked. And I think part of that would have been because the day before they had really gotten up for Kentucky, and that was the game that had the emotion to it, the game that, I mean, obviously they cared about the SEC championship game, but when you play Kentucky in the semis, I think that means a little bit more, especially when they had this history this season. But, yeah, I think Kentucky got probably the worst draw of the tournament.
You're talking about Tennessee?
Yeah. Tennessee. Can I say Kentucky? I'm sorry. Tennessee got, I think, the worst draw of the tournament. Because, look, if they had won, if they had beaten Auburn, they probably would have been a 1 seed. That's what the committee said. To be able to have to play Cincinnati, who really has the resume of a 5 seed, and to do that in Columbus, I think is absolutely brutal. They certainly can win and probably will win. I think they'll be favored by a couple points. This Tennessee team is legit. I remember seeing them last year at the Battle for Atlanta around Thanksgiving and being like, no one was talking about Tennessee at that point. They were just picked to finish 11th or 12th in the SEC. And you saw what has come to fruition this year. The team that just plays hard. They play harder than anyone else. I love this team. I like this Tennessee team a lot. They could absolutely make the Final Four. But I do think that is a really unfortunate draw. You get past Cincinnati, though, and I do think they have an easier road to the Elite Eight. The idea of them going up against Virginia in the Elite Eight, I think, would be an absolutely fascinating matchup. But, assuming Cincinnati beats Iowa, which I think is a pretty fair assumption the way that Iowa's been the past month and a half, that's a really tough draw in the round of 32.
Reid Forgrave, CBS Sports, joins us to look at the brackets. Villanova, defending national champions, only get a 6 seed. Did you feel like they were disrespected?
No. I mean, they lost to Furman, they lost to Penn, they lost to something. Jay Wright has had to reinvent this team on the fly. This was always going to be somewhat of a rebuilding year for Villanova. But the Big East is it's crap this year. It's awesome that they won the Big East and won the Big East tournament. That's worth something. It's worth a banner, I suppose. But this team they didn't have the resume all year. I'm not going to say that they don't have a chance to do anything, but I think this is Jay Wright's weakest team in the past, 5 years, certainly.
LSU is without Will Wade, and so the question is, do they lose in their first game against Yale, or do you punch them out of the round of 32? Because there's no way without their coach they're going to make the second weekend, is there?
I mean, probably not. NCAA tournament's such a weird beast, right? My wife, who knows, I asked her a few years ago, she's filling out a bracket. I'm like, hey, who's your favorite college basketball player this season? And she goes, I want to say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's her extent of college basketball knowledge. And she beat me in the bracket that year. So the bracket is always weird. I am not going to pick LSU to make it past. I mean, I think Yale could give them trouble. I think the idea of either Belmont or Maryland in that second round could give them trouble. But LSU is really talented. They're one of the more talented teams in the country. You never know when a team is playing with that sort of emotion, when they are pissed off with the world and they feel wrong. Even though they were probably the ones that did the wrong things, you can paint that us against the world, and you just never know what would happen. I mean, the idea of teams like LSU or Auburn or Kansas or any of these FBI teams making the Final Four is the worst nightmare for the NCAA. The bad press that would inevitably come out of it would be awful for the NCAA. But these teams can take that us against the world mentality, especially a team that has as much NBA players as LSU has, and really play it to their advantage. Am I going to put them in the Sweet 16? I actually haven't completed my bracket yet. Probably not. probably going to take either Maryland and Belmont. I'm kind of leaning Belmont, to be honest. But, that's a team that they have Final Four talent written all over them. You just don't know how these things play out when the emotions of the moment and the emotions of what's happened over the past few weeks, how that plays into things.
It could be the most deliciously NCAA thing ever. A team with its coach suspended goes to the Final Four. Reid Forgrave.
Oh my gosh! I'm wondering if we can get an all. I don't know how that bracket works out, but if we can get like an all FBI Final Four, right? Like, worst nightmare.
Reid Forgrave joins us this morning here on the show. So Ja Morant is either the most exciting player in college basketball, the second one behind Zion Williamson. He is part of a 12 seed, the Murray State Racers, and 12s are always good for one per year as a 5-12 upset. But is Ja Morant good enough to give Murray State a little bit of juice and a run through March, or is he just a great player on a flawed team?
It's certainly a flawed team. They don't do much outside of Ja Morant, but Ja Morant is that good. Like, he ranks. So just to give you like a sense of how much he means to this team, he ranks third in the country, 5,000 basketball players in usage. He is this team. Like that is who Murray State is. But the type of numbers that he's putting up, averaging 25 and 10, he's certainly a top 3 pick, maybe the number 2 pick after Zion. He's the type of guy who can put a team on his back. When I look at them playing Marquette in that first round, Marcus Howard is awesome. Is Marcus Howard at 100%? Is he healthy? We don't know that for sure. Marquette can really shoot it, but they've really struggled the past few weeks. So I actually have in my bracket, I think Murray State could make a run to the Sweet 16. I certainly have them over Marquette. I think that is one of those 5-12 matchups that's going to be really trendy pick over the next few days.
The Pac-12 was such a disgrace all season long, but now people are saying Oregon is a scary team because of the way that they ended the season in the Pac-12 tournament. Is there a scary or dangerous Pac-12 team in your mind?
No. No, not at all. I mean, Mike Hopkins is doing good things at Washington. They got a nice defense. They're also a team that had some really bad losses. Like, they lost to Cal. Cal's one of the worst high major teams in the country. I get that bad games happen. But, yeah, I mean, Pac-12 to me is essentially a mid-major conference this year. The lack of talent from, top to bottom, it just isn't there. So, hey, they won Oregon. They won the Pac-12 tournament. They won 8 games in a row. Cool. Like Belmont's won like 100 games in a row. Like, there are other teams in mid-major conferences that have won a ton of games in a row that I'd pick over Oregon any day.
So Wofford's really good, and people think of Wofford as the Cinderella low major, but they got a 7 seed yesterday, and they won a really tough SoCon, and they played their power conference opponents really tough. Is it possible that Kentucky gets a tough draw with Wofford in that second game, or did you think that Kentucky, there's nothing really to gripe about where Calipari usually gripes about his road?
Calipari doesn't gripe? What are you talking about, man? He doesn't gripe. He's Calipari. Yeah. My initial reaction when I looked at that was Kentucky's going to overwhelm Wofford, just with size and skill, frankly. But then you look a little bit deeper. First of all, there's no guarantee that Kentucky will play Wofford. They might play Seton Hall, who they lost to earlier this year. Miles Powell is an absolute stud for Seton Hall. I think he could give Kentucky all sorts of problems. But the depth and the size of Kentucky is so much better. Wofford is just a completely different team. They're one of the best shooting teams in the country. They rank second out of 353 Division I teams in three-point shooting percentage. What is the way that much more talented teams tend to lose to less talented teams in the NCAA tournament? Well, one of the teams shoots 50% from three and takes 25 or 33. Like, that's how it happens. So, yeah, I think Kentucky's a better team. Kentucky should win. But, in a 40-minute game in a single elimination tournament, weird things happen. Kentucky's hasn't been the most consistent team this year. Like, if you look at them the first half, it's almost like they have 2 seasons built into one. I think they are much better in the second half of the season than they were in the first. But, they're not the world's greatest shooting team. And they certainly have some flaws. That said, I'm not sure if I'm going to pick them to go to the Final Four, but I have Kentucky in my Elite Eight because I just want UNC Kentucky, I think, would be an absolutely awesome game. I'm looking forward to that. And I know people are going to yell at me for saying this, because give me Duke, North Carolina in the title game. We've never seen that before. Both those teams deserve it. They're both good enough. They're talented enough. They do it in completely different ways. I was in Chapel Hill for their game a week or two ago, and it was on fire. It was just an absolutely awesome atmosphere. So give me part 4 of that rivalry. Everyone's going to hate that, but come on. I think there's nothing better in college basketball than 2 of the most prestigious programs going for it in the last game of the year.
We will wrap up with a couple of questions on the number 1 seed, so about 30 seconds apiece. Number 1, do you feel like Gonzaga is the shakiest 1 seed?
Probably. I know some people would say Virginia because of last year, because of the idea that they limit possessions. But no, to me, I think Gonzaga's awesome and could win it all. But let's be honest, they haven't played anyone the past, couple months when they just go into conference play. BYU's fine. San Francisco's fine. St. Mary's, they end up losing to them, not just losing them, but losing to them significantly in the WCC tournament. I'd say Gonzaga would probably be the 1 seed that I'd be considered shakiest. But I do think it's a pretty strong 1 seed line this year.
And finally, if Zion plays like he did in the ACC title game, can anybody beat Duke? Or I'm sorry, in the ACC tournament, can anybody beat Duke?
Nope. Nope. Certainly somebody can. And Duke is one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country. And just like I was saying, the way to beat a more talented team is to bang home a lot of threes. But they are, I think, an order of magnitude more talented than everyone else out there, including Kentucky, including Gonzaga, including North Carolina. I think Duke has all the talent. They don't have all the experience. I'm rooting for it. I want Zion in the title game. I think that would be good for college basketball. When a player can become a first-name only player in college basketball, a sport that is often considered a niche sport, Zion Williamson is a household name. Give that to me for April 8th in my city of Minneapolis, right down the road from me in the title game.